G'day guys, welcome to another video. No, wait. Before I start, let me at least grab a coffee. Good morning guys, or well, whatever time it is, morning coffee. You know what I mean. Okay, not too bad, not too hot, not too cold. Now, you have to take your test seriously. That's the title of this video. I've got a few updates that I want to talk to you about, both personal and also in terms of the IELTS and the PTE exams. And life in Australia can get sometimes quite difficult, quite challenging, because we have work commitments, we have to pay international student fees. Maybe, depending on where you're from, the situation in your country, like happened to me, is not going to be great, and then you're always going to be checking that everything in your country is somewhat okay. And on top of all that, you also want to obviously improve your English skills. You want to also have social life, and it can get really complicated, and I mean the list is endless. This video is not about why life in Australia is difficult, but rather how can we deal with taking our test seriously when it comes to living here, certifying our English skills and basically passing once and for all tests like IELTS and PTE. Unfortunately, I have to tell you a good and a bad update. And usually in class I tell my students, what update would you like first? Would you like first the good news or the bad news, right? And every group is different, and sometimes students would say, no, tell me the bad news, and they get really scared, but then, I'm usually joking. But in this case, the bad news, well, at least for me, maybe not for you watching, but for me, the bad news are bad. And basically, long story short, I did not pass my exam, which is not really nice, It is a lesson learned, needless to say. But the good news is that I almost passed. So now I could finish the video here. So thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye. That was a joke. Don't go, stay here with me. As I prepare breakfast and I tell you, so it's a bit of a different type of video. But anyways, the point is that, unfortunately, I did not pass my Japanese exam, but the good news is that everything that I was doing, all the preparation, helped, because it was what I like to call a good fail. Maybe if you've been following the podcast, I've said this before, but this time I was so close. It really almost reminded me when I didn't pass my PTE test, because when I did my PTE exam, I remember that I had three bands with above 80, like 85, 87, 82, and then one band was 78. Can you imagine that? That you pass three bands and then one band is down? Well, surprise, surprise. The same thing happened to me with my Japanese test. Basically, I used to do really well in listening, so I was a bit more, I was a bit more relaxed with the listening band. And this time, my listening score was a bit lower. And my guess is probably because I was, maybe tired from the reading section, I don't know, or stress, whatever excuse we can put. But the good news in all of this is that my overall score improved. And again, it's like going from a fail, or let's say a clear, or like a fail that is not good, let's say, if there is such thing as a good fail. This time I went from that into a good fail. And I feel that just not passing the test for 3 points, it could have been one question. You will know my stress when I tell you that this exam I have to wait until December to take it again, which is, unfortunate, but that's life. And we have to just basically keep going. And I remember that when I said this to one of my friends, instead of like comforting me and telling me, Emilio, you are amazing, or this and that, actually he said something to me really good, and he's like, Emilio, you're a teacher, man. Maybe try doing more of all the things that you tell your students. And that's when I noticed a big mistake that I did in the preparation this time. Last time when I didn't pass the test, I focused only on my weaknesses, which were the listening, which were grammar and vocabulary and reading. So what did I do? As someone who recommends on YouTube, who tells students to do a lot of reading, that's what I did. And in fact, I think this is the first time I'm telling you this, something really good happened where I basically read not a lot of short novels, but I read a short novel, and then I watched I was gonna say the book, I watched the movie. It was actually a short novel called Mirai no Mirai. I think maybe it's Mirai's Future in English. It's a short movie, not from Studio Ghibli, but it's a Japanese movie. So if you're into Japanese movies, I recommend you check it out. It's a really nice movie. And and again, I remember when I was watching this movie with my wife, to my surprise, I mean, one, I said to her, let's watch it. I think you're going to like it, being here, trying to convince her to watch this movie with me. But actually, one of the main reasons I wanted to watch this movie, it's something that maybe it has happened to a lot of us when we are learning a new language, and it is that I wanted to really, really check how much I understood from reading the book. And a lot of the times when we were watching the movie, I was so surprised because something happened in the movie, of course, and then a part of me is like, I know what will happen. And I am sure this has happened to you guys when you're watching when you're watching a movie from a book that you have read. And because from the book you have a lot of details, right? And then you basically really get into the story. So a part of me was like, let me see how much I really get from this. And again, I was pleasantly surprised. I'm not gonna come on this video and tell you like, oh, I remembered every single thing from that, but I remembered a lot. And what does that tell you, or what does that tell me? It basically means that my reading comprehension is improving, which is good. We want that. I always tell my students, if you are one of my students and you're watching this, leave a comment and you can tell people, right? I normally tell students, we want to increase our vocabulary base. The more we increase our vocabulary, the better, because that usually leads to better comprehension, better/more comprehension. And yeah, like that was good progress. Then, did that translate into test scores? It did translate into better test scores, enough to pass the test. Not really, but again, for being 3 points, I'm happy. It is like, normally when we don't pass an IELTS test, a PTE test, or if I don't pass my Japanese exam, normally we feel sad, we feel down. And I'm not going to come here and lie to you. It is a hit, Sometimes a part of me even feels like crying. So I'm also human, okay? It's not like I want to come up here and be like, oh, look at me, I'm the teacher and I don't care, I failed, or vice versa. It's not like, it's okay if you fail the test. No, it hurts, it sucks, it's not nice. I want to, acknowledge that feeling, but I also want to equally come here and tell you that, just because we feel terrible, it doesn't mean that something good happened. And a part of me, when I see what happened here with this one, I just think I'm so close when it comes to passing this test, and it's almost like empowering in a way. So I wanted to give you that message too. It really, really reminded me when I didn't pass my PTE test, but I said, if we keep ourselves down and we don't, if we don't push ourselves, or we need to be very careful with what we tell ourselves when it comes to the test preparation process. And all of this happened thanks to talking to a friend, and again, and this friend being real. So I maybe think that it is a good opportunity to say it is important to surround yourself with good people, people that pushed you. This friend of mine, just because of privacy, you know who you are. And anyways, what I just wanted to tell you from this conversation with him is that he just told me, Emilio, bro, you are an incredible teacher, man. And I would say, and don't take this the wrong way, but why don't you take your test seriously? And it is hard. I was listening to that thinking, that's true. Part of the big mistake that I made is that this time I did well in the listening section. I improved my score, in 2 sections of the test, but in the listening part, I just relaxed. That's the truth. I relaxed and I thought, okay, I can watch any movie, almost any movie, any series in Japanese. I listen to the radio and I understand a lot. I understand, let's say easily over 70% of what I hear. So why bother practicing the listening section on the test? That was my line of thinking. And I feel that looking back and after listening to this friend of mine, maybe I could have at least practiced a little bit. It is almost like I neglected the listening section. So having this chat with him was a bit of a wake-up call, in the sense that sometimes when we are doing these exams, or whenever we are doing any type of test, right? Sometimes we still need to work in the areas where we are good at. And the analogy, when my friend sent me this long message, basically, voice note, I should say, because I'm the type of guy who likes to send voice notes to friends who are not in Australia. Let me know in the comments if you're also like that. And basically, I remember that this guy he's a Cristiano Ronaldo fan, okay? He likes Messi too, but he's a Cristiano Ronaldo fan. He's a fan of El Bicho, right? And I was thinking, listening to him and thinking, right? And then when I was explaining myself, I thought, even if I'm really good at listening, I shouldn't just neglect it, because that's not what Ronaldo would have done. Like, I'm sure that, I'm not a big football guy, so my apologies to my Latinos, but I know, or I can imagine that Cristiano Ronaldo, I'm not saying that I am Cristiano Ronaldo in Japanese, right? But I imagine that Cristiano Ronaldo is not going to be like, oh, okay, I have to practice, I am really good in free kicks, I'm not going to do free kicks. Or I'm not going to do penalties because every time I shoot a penalty, I score a goal. I'm guessing, right, that Ronaldo would have been like, okay, I'm going to work maybe on these areas, these weaknesses, and then I'm going to basically, still work on everything, but putting more focus in those difficult things for me. Maybe he's not the person who would have said, oh, look, I'm just really good, I'm not going to do anything, which is unfortunately what I did. Sounds a bit arrogant when I'm listening to myself, or like sounds a bit, I think I'm up there. And it is, I guess a learning. It is not a learning. It is a lesson that I'm sharing here with you while I'm making breakfast before I go into full study mode today. So that's again one big thing. I always tell students, especially when we're preparing for IELTS or PTE, sometimes I tell them, look, I'm not worried about this band, for example. A lot of my Latinos are really, really good with speaking, and I tell them, look, I'm not worried about speaking. I'm sure you're going to crush speaking, but maybe writing, pushing your writing score, that will be a challenge. Or maybe it is the reading score, and that's why I tell them to read a lot. And I was thinking, but even when that happens, when I tell them that, I still talk about the things on the band where they're really good at, which is something that, again, I didn't do with me as the test taker, as the student. I just basically said, okay, look, I'm good at listening. I'm just going to relax. I don't think there is anything wrong necessarily with relaxing, but we want to basically not be in that position. At the end of the day, every band is important, and it doesn't matter how good or how bad you are in a specific band. If you don't do well or if something happens, then, and this is also, I guess, a mini warning for anybody thinking of taking IELTS, because sometimes maybe some of you will be listening to me, or sometimes even, this happens a lot. People come up and tell me, Emilio, I don't know what happened this particular time. I did my test and I always get a good speaking score, but on this time, on this attempt, my speaking score was not good. What happened? And maybe what happened was that they just basically, wait, I don't want this to burn. That basically something went wrong. Maybe they didn't practice enough speaking, or they had a difficult topic. They had a bad day. I mean, there are a lot of things that could go wrong in the test. So by not just, let's say, quote unquote, ignoring a specific band, I think we're going to increase our chances of doing well in the test. And yeah, I mean, I hope you take that from this video. It is a mix of don't let yourself feel terrible. Feel terrible, that's okay. I mean, it is hard to deal with these things where we don't pass a test, 450, 470 Australian dollars. Maybe you already paid a course, maybe you studied with me or you studied with someone else and you didn't pass it. You've got PR, problems in your country, this or that, and I want you to pass. And sometimes, maybe when we are half a band or like a few points, like happened to me, maybe we are like almost there. The good news for you, if you are watching this, is that for IELTS and PTE, you don't need to be like me, and you don't have to wait 3 months to basically, take your test again. And then I guess it brings me to the next part of the episode. It feels like a cooking channel, doesn't it? Brings me to the next part of the episode, which is going to be, what are the next steps? Now that this happened, now that I didn't pass the test, what is the plan? And I hope that by now you have a good idea, but I'll still tell you just in case, because maybe you or someone that you know is going to be doing IELTS or PTE, or I don't know, there might be some of you who want to do the IELTS in Japanese, or maybe you are a native English speaker and you want to do DELE for Spanish, or whatever language it may be. And the next steps are going to be really important for us. So this is my plan. First plan is to go outside, because Melbourne is surprising us with good weather before it rains. So let's go for a walk and I'll tell you the plan. To make this extra special, I'm going to take you to a place that's really important for me. You'll see why, and if you have been following the channel, you will know why this is such a nice place. Let's go. And we are finally here. And the reason why this park is special, it's because, maybe you remember, this is where I basically told you guys that I passed my NATI translation test. And just the same way that I am telling you now that I didn't pass my exam, I think by coming up here and just saying my plan coming up, hopefully, believe in karma, in whatever you want, but it's also, I guess, a way of giving myself good luck in me sharing my plan with you. And basically, the steps will be the following. Step 1, as the video says, taking the test seriously. It means continuing to build up a vocabulary base, continuing to push myself with reading practice, and most importantly, not just leaving aside any band. This time, my plan will be to basically focus on all the bands of the test. And even though I feel more comfortable with listening, that doesn't mean that because I feel comfortable with it, I'm just going to completely ignore that band, because we know that, again, doing that wasn't very good. And God knows, it could be that maybe my listening skills were good, but again, without getting into too much detail as what happened in the test, we always need to keep everything fresh. That's what I tell students, and just like my friend told me, maybe try and do what you recommend to your students. Even though I feel super comfortable with my listening skills this time, more time practice, more serious practice, so that, we avoid any chances of really of failing the test, basically. Which brings me to the second thing that I have to do, which is more, let's say, serious practice. And by that I mean sticking to a study schedule that, fits my current lifestyle, but also in a way that it is not leading to burnout and that is pushing me. I'm going to be using the Pomodoro technique to stay productive, and I'm planning to make a new video about it. So in case you haven't heard what the Pomodoro technique is, don't worry, very soon there's going to be a link in the description with a video of me explaining it. So definitely focusing on that study plan will help, because I noticed that in these past few months, something that I sometimes, not always, but sometimes happened to me was that I would have long study sessions or study days, and that is good, but maintaining that is really hard. And even though I still had my small schedule, this time I don't want to be doing too much cramming, but rather finding something that is more sustainable. This brings me to my third point, which is more test-like practice and also more timed exercises. Even though or in this case, I have done the test a few times, probably like one of the best things that we can do is to practice under pressure, not a lot of pressure, but do practice with maybe a timer to get closer to that test feeling. Because one thing is to read a book, relaxing at home, or maybe, riding the train or in a park like this with no one around, nice and quiet. And a very different one is reading a test-like question where okay, I have maximum 3 minutes to do this, probably continuing to gather the resources I've got and to do more timed practice will definitely be another thing that is going to be part of my plan. Then the fourth thing has to be getting help. As much as sometimes we want to do things just on our own and basically save time, save money, or whatever the case may be, this time I will be, putting a bigger effort into maybe finding a teacher, getting into a study group, having at least someone to talk to about this whole test preparation. Not only to have that support network, but also to find areas where I might be missing things, which is, funny enough, the same thing that I do with my students. A lot of the times people come to me because they have been practicing, maybe something isn't working, and I help them find out what that thing is, or maybe I help them improve in whatever area they have to polish more. In my case, it will be basically looking for a Japanese teacher who will help me with my grammar. And this is probably not a surprise for you guys. One thing, as I said before, is doing a bit of reading. Another one is just to casually having a conversation. And a very different one is to basically do an academic test on the test conditions. As much as I can come here on camera and tell you that I feel really comfortable with my Japanese skills in terms of like traveling, maybe going to, a restaurant, talking to someone, introducing myself, whatever the case may be, it is not the same as if I am sitting down looking at a grammar question or looking at a sentence. Sometimes the same thing that my students tell me happens to me, which is, Emilio, I know this means this, I just don't really understand why. And I think part of that reason probably is because I have been learning basically without too many textbooks and more all on my own. But now what I have to do is not only to get help, but also to go a few steps back, to really, let's say, break down and solidify my foundation so that I go into the test and almost, look, just to share with you something cool that happened this time. This Japanese exam has got a section where they test your vocabulary, and in the vocabulary section there are different questions. One of them is basically having short sentences and there is a missing word. And Japanese uses kanji, the Chinese characters, and sometimes it's really tricky because they put four kanjis very, very similar. I want you to imagine something like the drop-down question on PTE where you have a reading text, you click, and then you get four options. Something like that, but with Japanese kanji, right? And if your mother tongue is Spanish or maybe English, at the very beginning, all of them look very, very similar. But the point I'm about to tell you, which is good news, is that all this reading practice, I guess, helped me in a way because I did apparently quite well in that section. But on the grammar section, when I had those reading questions that included grammar, that's where that wasn't my strength, let's say. That's where I had the most mistakes. So again, doing a mix of all the things that I have been talking about, focusing on your strength, but also focusing on your weaknesses, getting that extra help, maybe getting a teacher. I don't know, maybe I find someone that can meet me once a week, twice a week, and basically get together with me, help me push myself, and also help me identify any errors that might be happening, or even suggest other things that I could do. I feel that sometimes we have that ego, right? Of, oh, my skills in whatever language are really good and we just want to do it all on our own, especially now with AI and things like that. But sometimes the human factor is a big thing, and maybe getting someone that has helped people going through the same thing that I'm going through right now will be what helps me to push through and maybe not just pass the test with like a giddy pass, which means like a just pass, but maybe I get a really good pass. That will be even better. And thinking of my long-term goals, because I have to go, well, I want to, I should say, not I have to, I want to basically get like the highest level possible. Imagine like an IELTS academic of 8 maybe, or PTE of 79 on each band. But for this exam, I know that I have to really polish my grammar because the next test is going to be a bit more challenging. Right now, the goal is like an IELTS 7 or a PTE of 65. So yes, getting help to basically get through and achieve that goal. The last two things have to do with continuing to build and review a vocabulary list, something that you're probably tired of hearing me talk about, but I'm sure that will be key this time to further solidify all that learning. And of course, staying accountable. I think that making this video, keeping you guys updated, it's also, and not only you updated, also for me to be doing this, it is quite important, especially being right here, where I was telling you that I passed my certification exam, that I am a translator. It also brings a bit of perspective into, the whole video I'm making right now, because it's like, okay, not everything is terrible, and maybe I'm very optimistic. I want to finish on a good note, and that's another important thing, that despite all the bad things that happen to us, there are good things out there. I mean, as I am literally just looking to this right in front of me, I just think about it and it is good crazy. 3-4 months ago, I was here making the video telling you that I am a NATI certified translator. The reality is, it's not that I am not studying Japanese because I'm playing Nintendo, which is, I did get a Switch too, but that's not the point. It's not like I'm scrolling on Instagram the whole day. A lot of the times I'm teaching, a lot of the times I'm making a video, I'm working on my editing skills because I really want to, make videos like this for YouTube. But more so than that, I am also getting a lot of translations. People watching my videos, students, friends of friends who are sharing the content that I do and basically contacting me. Hey Emilio, I got a sponsorship, I got a visa, I got this, I want to send all these documents to the government. And then, I'm working with that, which is a good problem to have. And sometimes it's like, okay, I want to do Japanese grammar, but I also know I have to translate 5 to 10 documents. And it is a good problem, a good situation to have. And as I'm telling you this, I also feel like good blessed, in the sense that you are watching this. Maybe some of you will share this video, some of you will like it, some of you have been following the podcast, or you have been following me, and maybe you share my content, or you tell people about me, and in a good way that keeps me busy, that keeps the whole thing growing. More students are reaching out, I'm making more content, putting out more videos, I'm translating more. So to me, it's all like a good cycle of, let's say, a good problem. I don't think it's a good problem, but a good situation to be in. So it's more like things are happening, and this is what I said at the beginning. Life in Australia can get tricky, but it is also, let's say, finding that balance and saying, okay, I have all these responsibilities, these things I have to do, these things that are important for me, but also finding time for the study, because as much as the study might be boring or not interesting, maybe you are not crazy like me and you actually enjoy sitting down and reviewing things, but that's a different video. The point I want to make is that, again, we want to try to also make time for that important thing. Going back to what my friend told me, take your test seriously. I want you to do the same, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. Like the video, share it. If you've got a comment or a question, do let me know. As I just told you, more videos are going to come up. If you're on Spotify listening to this, I have to apologize publicly, because more and more videos of this type will come. And again, with all these studies, preparing the podcast will be a little bit more difficult than what it used to be. So this is not to say that I'm shutting down the podcast, but more like the podcast episodes will be maybe a bit like this, with more video, and it's going to be a different way to connect. Last bit, thank you for being with me. Thank you for being part of my day. Thank you for listening to my plan. I hope it helps you. I have to get going because look, Melbourne is going to give us some rain. Stay productive, stay accountable, and I'll see you on the next video talking a bit about the Pomodoro technique.